Have the Academy Awards finally started to take the horror genre seriously? I kind of think so. But will it last? This year's slate of nominees is historic for a lot of reasons, but particularly because of 3 films that are in the horror genre that were nominated very significantly. Of course, there's Amy Madigan's performance in Weapons, and then there's Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein. But the biggest of them all is Ryan Coogler's Sinners. It was nominated for 16 Academy Awards, more than any film in the history of all films at the Academy Awards. That's huge. Now, I wrote about this in the recent issue of Newsweek magazine, talking a little bit about the history of horror at the Academy Awards and how they've never really ever taken it seriously. But before we get into the significance of this year's Academy Awards, let's look back a little bit at past films that were in the horror genre that were nominated or won Academy Awards. Unfortunately, this is a pretty quick recap because there's not that many. In the golden age of Hollywood, there really was only one film that got recognized in the horror genre, and that's Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Now, Frederick March won the Academy Award for Best Actor in 1932 for his performance. It was sort of a dual win for both Dr. Jekyll and for The Champ. But that was it. Ever since then, horror was recognized in the technical categories, and it's always been very popular in the technical categories. But in the major categories, it never really received any attention. In fact, it wasn't until 1960 that another film would come along that was in the horror genre that would be nominated for a major Academy Award. And that film is Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho.
We all go a little mad sometimes.
Now, Psycho was nominated for 4 Academy Awards, but of the major ones, it was nominated for Best Director and Best Supporting Actress, Janet Leigh. Do not understand how it wasn't nominated for Best Picture. How was that film not nominated for Best Picture? More shockingly, how was Anthony Perkins not nominated for Best Actor? We're going to get to the snubs in a little bit, but that one needs to be, that is the snub of all time. Is there a more film-defining, career-defining performance than Anthony Perkins in Psycho? I do not think so. Now, Psycho is sort of still in that sort of old Hollywood vibe, if you will. It was made under the old Hollywood system, really. It was very much within that infrastructure, as was the other horror film that was nominated in the 1960s, Whatever Happened to Baby Jane.
Oh, really? Did she like it? Oh, really? Did she like it?
It was starring, of course, Hollywood legends Bette Davis and Joan Crawford, and it was nominated for, of course, a bunch of technical awards, but it was of the major awards, it was nominated for Best Actress for Bette Davis and Best Supporting Actor Victor Bruno. Joan Crawford was snubbed for that, and I kind of think it was deserved. Actually, I don't think she deserved the Academy Award nomination for that. Don't come for me for that. I love Joan Crawford, but I kind of think the nominees were as they should be. Just saying. You know you're gay when you think something from 1962 is still controversial. It's not, because that's not. But when it involves Joan Crawford, it's not only gay, it's controversial. I digress. Now, in the late 60s, there was a shift into kind of a new Hollywood, if you will, where films weren't necessarily made in the traditional ways that old Hollywood made films. Of course, it was outside the studio system. And so films were able to sort of explore genres and explore stories that typically would not have made it into cinema. And one of the biggest ones in the horror genre in that era is Rosemary's Baby. And it actually won a major Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress for Ruth Gordon. Ruth Gordon's win is sort of, I think, the path that Amy Madigan might be taking to win her Academy Award for Weapons this year. And it's that she was a Hollywood legend. I've talked about this before. She was a Hollywood legend, past writer, Academy Award nominated writer of great films, of great Katharine Hepburn, Spencer Tracy comedies. And everyone knew her. Everyone loved her. And she gave a really interesting, kooky, weird performance in Rosemary's Baby. And so it was able to stand out in the horror genre, really despite it being in the horror genre, because of someone like Ruth Gordon. Now, if Ruth Gordon wasn't in that role, would it have been an Academy Award nominated performance? I don't know. I'm also kind of surprised that Mia Farrow wasn't nominated for Best Actress that year. I will say it was a really tough year for actresses because I think that was the same year that Barbra Streisand and Katharine Hepburn tied for Best Actress. So there was a lot of people vying for Best Actress that year. But really, if we're talking about horror film at the Academy Awards, there's one that stands out among all of them, and it really is the first one that was nominated for Best Picture, The Exorcist.
Spirit
Shove it up your ass.
73, William Friedkin. It was nominated for 10 Academy Awards, and it won 2. And of the major nominations from The Exorcist is, of course, Best Picture, Best Actress for Ellen Bernstein, Best Supporting Actor, Jason Miller, Best Supporting Actress, Linda Blair, and, of course, Best Director, William Friedkin. Now, The Exorcist was a phenomenon. It was a shocking film. It was definitely part of that new era, new Hollywood vibe that they were trying new things, and it was exciting to watch. And The Exorcist changed a lot for the horror genre at the Academy Awards because in a lot of ways it gave an allowance for more horror films to follow. Now, the sad thing is, while it did usher in other horror films being taken more seriously, it didn't open the doors for the horror genre to be a massive contender at the Academy Awards. Now, later on in the 70s, Jaws was nominated, of course, for many major awards, including Best Picture. But I'm kind of like hesitant to call Jaws a horror film, even though it is a horror film. I mean, the shark really is a monster, and that I think would categorize it as a horror film. It's not the traditional horror film that you would expect or imagine. But I still want to give it its due because it is a horror film. It's just not one that I'm like, oh, I want to watch a scary movie. Let's put on Jaws. I just don't, my brain doesn't go there. Now, a solidly horror film is Carrie, of course. Stephen King's Carrie, 1976 film starring Sissy Spacek.
He's gonna laugh and they're all gonna laugh.
And that was nominated for 2 major Academy Awards for Best Actress for Sissy Spacek and Best Supporting Actress for Piper Laurie. And that one I think is a really interesting one because, Piper Laurie, of course, was previously Academy Award nominated, and this book was a massive book. So like everyone knew about Carrie. But Sissy Spacek wasn't a household name. She was a younger actress, and she did this fantastic performance in this horror film. It is a solid horror film. And it got recognized, which I think sort of speaks to the Academy sort of changing how they look at the horror genre in the 1970s. Unfortunately, that didn't lead to much more consideration in the years to come. In the 1980s, there really was only one horror film that was recognized by the Academy, and I think you can barely call it a horror film. It's Aliens. Aliens is, I'm always hesitant to think alien movies are like horror movies because I just don't think of them like horror movies. But then again, I'm not afraid of aliens, but I'm also not afraid of ghosts. So I don't know. Aliens is a horror film. I know it is. It's just not, to me, a horror film. But it was nominated for 7 Academy Awards, 2 wins, all in the technical categories except for 1 nomination for Best Actress for Sigourney Weaver. Now, the 90s going into the aughts, that's an interesting era that we're in now because it's like, it's not quite the modern era because, the 1990 was a long time ago. Unfortunately, I hate to say it, but it did start a really interesting conversation around horror at the Academy Awards, starting with Kathy Bates's win for Misery. That is a horror film. She is a monster in it. She is evil. She's a killer.
I know that, Mr. Man.
And her winning that Academy Award was so exciting, so huge. For people who love horror, that was like, yes. Like, that was like one for us. And Kathy Bates will always be one for us because of it. Like, she is like in our lane. I love Kathy Bates's win for Misery. It's probably one of my favorite Academy Award wins ever in the history of Oscars. And it just started, I think, something. And maybe you could even argue that in the following year when The Silence of the Lambs came out, and that did so well at the Academy Awards, that it took sort of Kathy Bates's win for them to even really take seriously The Silence of the Lambs, because that is a horror film, even though it's kind of more of a thriller for me, less horror, but still, it's a horror film.
A census taker once tried to test me. I ate his liver with some fava beans and a nice Chianti.
And it won the top 5 major awards at the Academy Awards in 1991. That means Best Picture, Best Director for Jonathan Demme, Best Actor for Anthony Hopkins, Best Actress for Jodie Foster, and Best Screenplay. And it was a massive, massive hit. And so you would hope that maybe that would create some change, but not really, because after that, it was The Sixth Sense, got a bunch of Oscar nominations in 1999.
I see dead people.
nominated for 6, including Best Picture, Best Supporting Actor for Haley Joel Osment, Best Supporting Actress for Toni Collette. We're going to talk more about her in the snubs part in a little bit. And then of course Best Director for M. Night Shyamalan. But like, it didn't really get a lot. It didn't win any. And it was a huge phenomenon, but it didn't also set a new precedent for the Academy Awards. Later on, Black Swan, Natalie Portman won the Oscar for Best Actress for that. Again, it's hard for me to call that a horror film, even though I know it is. It's just not what I think of when I think of a horror film, but it is listed in that kind of genre. And it was nominated for a lot of major category Academy Awards. And of course, Portman won, and then Best Picture for Best Director for Darren Aronofsky. Like, it did very well. I think the tide shifted with Get Out. Jordan Peele's Get Out in 2017.
If there's too many white people, I get nervous, you know.
I think we're in an era that we're finally seeing a shift in the Academy Awards. Jordan Peele's Get Out was nominated for 4 Academy Awards. It won 1 for Best Screenplay for Jordan Peele, and it was nominated for Best Picture and for Best Actor for Daniel Kaluuya and Best Director for Jordan Peele. And what I think Get Out did, and I think it was this beautiful moment, and the Academy had changed, it had opened up its branches of voting, basically. So it allowed different types of people to be voting at the Academy Awards. And I think that is when the Academy seriously started looking at the horror genre in a different way. And that win was a big one. That one was comparable to Kathy Bates winning for Misery. It was a big win for fans of the horror genre because it said, listen, this genre, while it might seem silly and there might be death and there might be silly murders and there might be whatever, it actually is an allegory for like our own society in a lot of ways. And it tells really deep stories in ways that I think other genres can't really tell those kind of stories. And also they just happen to be big crowd pleasers with the box office too. So what's not to love? Deep stories and money. Now, one horror film that, again, it's hard for me to call it a horror film, although it does involve what some people in the film thought was a monster, The Shape of Water. I mean, Guillermo del Toro's Shape of Water. I don't think of it as a horror film. I think of it more as a romance film, a romantic horror film, if you will. But it did win a lot of Academy Awards. It was nominated for 13. It won 4, including Best Picture, Best Director. And I mean, it was nominated for Best Actress for Sally Hawkins, for Best Supporting Actor for Richard Jenkins, and Best Supporting Actress Octavia Spencer. And I love this movie. It's just hard, again, for me to call it a horror film, but you can make an argument that it might be in the horror genre. But that really gets us to this year, 2025 Oscars, and how the horror genre was taken very seriously this year. And before I talk about that, I want to talk about a few snubs, because there are some major snubs in the horror genre in the Academy Awards history that I think needs vindication. The first off is Boris Karloff for Bride of Frankenstein. I mean, Boris Karloff in general for playing Frankenstein. To me, that is a character that has lasted the test of sort of history. And we still think of Frankenstein. His Frankenstein is the Frankenstein we think of. And I think he should have been nominated for an Academy Award for it. Also, I think I would throw into that mix James Whale, the director. If you haven't seen Gods and Monsters, see Gods and Monsters. It's an incredible film. It's about Ian McKellen plays James Whale, and it's just an incredible movie. But James Whale should have been recognized by the Academy at some point in his life. Like I mentioned before, Anthony Perkins should have been nominated for Psycho. I don't understand how he did not get a nomination for Psycho. That's insane to me. Mia Farrow for Rosemary's Baby. Love her. She deserved the nomination. It was a tough year. I'm going to say both Jack Nicholson and Shelley Duvall for The Shining. How were they not recognized? I mean, I get The Shining was sort of a controversial film when it came out, and it was sort of, I mean, there was a lot of like drama around it, but I think their performances were incredible. I mean, particularly Jack Nicholson, but Shelley Duvall too. I mean, they both were just incredible. One that kind of makes me angry is Jeff Goldblum for The Fly. He was incredible in The Fly, and I don't understand how he wasn't recognized for that, particularly when it was a year like the next year they recognized Sigourney Weaver for Alien. So they were open to the idea of films like that getting Academy Award nominations, and Jeff Goldblum just didn't make the mix. One that made me really angry, it's a horror genre film, The Shape of Water, like I talked about. I kind of think Doug Jones should have been nominated for a Best Supporting Actor nomination, at least. Doug Jones plays the actor inside sort of the monster makeup, if you will. And there was more emotion that was unspoken by Doug Jones in that performance than a lot of other performances that could speak. And it's just a beautiful performance that I think he should have been recognized for. Now, this gets me to two actresses that, when even just thinking about it, it makes me furious that they weren't nominated for an Oscar. First being Toni Collette for Hereditary.
Don't you ever raise your voice at me! I am your mother!
How did that happen? Did we watch the same movie? Did you see the same thing as me? Toni Collette in Hereditary is one of the best performances in a film in the past 20 years of film. There, I said it. And I know you're thinking it too. If you don't, tell me in the comments. Let me know, because I don't understand how I live in a world where Toni Collette wasn't nominated for an Academy Award for Hereditary. I will take that to my grave, and I will fight till the end of time until Toni Collette has an Academy Award. This needs to happen. The other one is Lupita Nyong'o for Us. Now, a lot of people fight me on this one, but she played two roles. I mean, it's the same person, but she played two roles in the movie, one with a very different voice than what she actually has. It was, again, Jordan Peele film, fantastic film. I loved it so much. A lot of people want to fight me on whether she deserved an Oscar nomination for that. I don't see how you don't see how she deserved an Oscar nomination. I don't think necessarily she deserved to win, because she had already won, and she's an incredible actress. And I talked to her about it. I mean, I interviewed her a couple years ago. You can listen to it on the Parting Shot podcast. And I told her, I am furious that you did not get an Oscar nomination for that. And she was just kind of like, oh, it happens. And I'm like, no, it doesn't happen, Lupita. Sorry, I'm still very angry about it. And the last snub of recent years that I think was deserved, that she didn't get the love that she should have gotten, is Mia Goth for Pearl.
No, I'm a star!
I think her performance, it was comical, sure, it was out there, but there was layers to it that I think for anyone who loves horror, you watch that film and you know that Mia Goth is doing an incredible performance, and I think she should have gotten more love for it. But I can also understand why she wasn't nominated. But it doesn't make me happy. And that gets us to this year's Academy Awards. And I mean, now that we're in a situation where all the major sort of precursor award shows have happened, we have a good idea of where things stand for the Oscars. And I think we're looking at a year where the horror genre might actually take it all. But what I mean by that is Amy Madigan has a very good chance of winning Best Supporting Actress for Weapons. Especially now that she won at the Critics' Choice Awards. She won at the Actor Awards, which is probably the biggest indicator of who's going to win the Academy Award. And she has tight competition with Teyana Taylor for One Battle After Another and Wunmi Mosaku for Sinners. But I think she's actually going to take it. I think we're at a point where the momentum for Amy Madigan is just so strong that she's the lead in the Best Supporting Actress category. And I'm not mad at it. In fact, I like a kooky performance taking an Academy Award. I mean, it is, you cannot argue that it was not one of the most memorable performances of 2025. I don't think Frankenstein's going to win any of the major awards, Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein, but I love what he did and what he represents for the horror genre, so I love that he's in the mix. There is a chance that Jacob could probably maybe win for Best Supporting Actor for Frankenstein, especially if there's sort of like a battle between Sean Penn for One Battle After Another and Stellan Skarsgård for Sentimental Value. He could easily sneak in there and take the Oscar, but I don't think it's going to happen. I think it's either going to be Sean or Stellan, and I kind of feel like my gut is telling me Stellan's going to win, but I don't know. Because, I mean, Sean's won 2 Oscars before, and I think the Oscar voters know that, and Stellan Skarsgård has delivered a career of great performances, and Sentimental Value is a very much a worthy winning performance, so I can kind of see him taking it. So I don't think horror is going to do great in the Best Supporting Actor category. But what is really fascinating is what happened at the Actor Awards with Sinners. Michael B. Jordan won for Best Actor, and the cast won for Best Cast. That tells me that there's a lot more love for Sinners out there than we have previously seen in past award shows. Because previously, Sinners didn't perform very well at the Critics' Choice Awards, at the Golden Globes. It wasn't performing very well, but we saw hints of it being picked up in other areas, as at the BAFTA Awards when Wunmi won for Best Supporting Actress, and then of course at the Actor Awards. And so with this momentum for Sinners in the last sort of weeks of voting, not only do I think Michael B. Jordan has a chance of winning for Best Actor, which I think he deserves very much because he played, again, 2 parts, but also is the soul of the film. I mean, that performance is the soul of the film. And he is very much worthy of that Oscar. That doesn't mean I don't think Timothée Chalamet is going to win. I think he's probably the lead still to win. Personally, I still want Wagner Moura to win, but that's another conversation. But of Timothy and Michael, I wouldn't be mad at either winning, but I kind of want Michael to win more because it's just Sinners holds a very special place for me. I think it is a film that is not just horror; it's a lot of different things, and it speaks to the Black experience in the United States in a particular time that, yes, we've seen on film before, but not in this way. And Ryan Coogler used the horror genre, the vampire genre, in order to tell a much more nuanced, deeper story. And it was just an incredible story to watch. And so I would not be mad if Michael B. Jordan won for Best Actor, but I also would not be mad if Sinners took it for Best Picture. I see a path for Sinners winning Best Picture, and I still think there's no one stopping Paul Thomas Anderson for Best Director. He's going to win Best Director, and for One Battle After Another. But I can see a year where Best Director and Best Picture aren't the same thing, which has happened before, not often, but it has happened before. I mean, I think back to Ang Lee is a great example of that with Brokeback Mountain. He won for Brokeback Mountain for Best Director, but then, of course, Crash, won for Best Picture. Still don't understand that to this day. But I can see it happening, and I wouldn't be mad if Sinners took Best Picture and Paul Thomas Anderson won for Best Director. I'm very happy and eager to see what happens with Sinners, but ultimately, I want Sinners to win because I want a solidly horror film to win Best Picture. Yes, you can argue Shape of Water or Silence of the Lambs were horror films and thus had already won Best Picture, sure. But you can't deny that Sinners is a horror film. And if it wins Best Picture, it will be the most solidly horror film to win Best Picture. And I am very here for that. What do you think? Who do you think? I mean, there's a lot of things we covered in this video, but what do you think? Do you think Sinners has a chance of winning Best Picture? Who do you want in the horror genre to take home the Oscar? Who's the biggest snub in the horror genre in the history of all of horror nominees, or non-nominees, I should say, at the Academy Awards? Let me know in the comments. You can follow me at @AllenScott on everything. In the meantime, watch something fun today and maybe be angry about Toni Collette not getting nominated for Hereditary, because I need more people to be angry with me about that. Have a good one.